The first thing I noticed was the quiet. Not the soft jazz or the polite clink of crystal. Those belonged in every expensive restaurant in Gangnam. This quiet was different. It arrived when someone powerful stepped inside, when strangers stopped breathing at the same time without knowing why. I was mid-laugh, chopsticks hovering above a slice of grilled eel when the air shifted. Across from me, Park Min-jae blinked. Did someone famous walk in? I wanted to say no. I wanted to pretend it was only the air conditioning. But my instincts had been trained too well by the man who didn't need to raise his voice to be terrifying. Kang Joon-ho, my boss. Min-jae leaned forward. Haneul, you okay? I nodded too quickly. Yeah, just cold. I wasn't cold. I was caught. Because tonight wasn't supposed to happen. An hour earlier, I'd stood in my apartment mirror, twisting my hair into a neat half-up style and choosing a simple black dress. Nothing dramatic, nothing that could be interpreted as a message. My phone buzzed while I dabbed on lipstick. Private number. Again. I let it ring out. Not tonight, I told myself. Just once. I wanted a dinner that didn't belong to Kang Joon-ho. As his executive assistant, my life ran on his schedule. I arranged meetings, guarded his time, and translated his silences into action. People envied me for being close to him. They didn't understand what close meant in his world. Close meant watched. Close meant owned, even if no one said the word out loud. And lately, he'd been watching more. When I asked to leave early today, he didn't look up from the documents in front of him. He only said, "Where are you going?" "A personal appointment," I'd answered, keeping my voice steady. His pen paused for half a second. Then, calmly, "Be back by 9. I didn't correct him. I didn't say I wasn't asking permission. I just bowed slightly and left before my hands started shaking. Min-jae was safe. That was why I'd agreed to meet him. He was my university senior, the kind of man who remembered birthdays and returned borrowed books. He worked as a teacher now, wore soft sweaters, and smiled like life hadn't sharpened his edges. When he suggested dinner, I heard myself say yes before I could think of reasons to say no. We met outside Sori, an upscale restaurant tucked behind a row of luxury boutiques. The hostess led us into a private booth behind frosted glass. Candlelight, white tablecloth, staff who moved like shadows. Min-jae smiled, relieved. I was worried you'd cancel. I forced a laugh. Why would I cancel? He watched me for a moment. Because you've sounded tired lately. Busy, I almost said. Fine, I almost said. But with Min-jae, lies felt heavier. Work, I admitted. It's a lot. He nodded, accepting the small truth. Then let tonight be easy. And for a while it was. We talked about campus memories, the professor who used to fall asleep during his own lectures, the overpriced coffee near the library. Min-jae made me laugh until my shoulders loosened for the first time in weeks. When the food arrived, warmth spread through me. Broth, grilled fish, the simple comfort of someone who didn't demand anything for my silence. Then my phone buzzed again. Private number. My stomach dropped. I flipped it face down like that could erase the call. Min-jae lifted his brows. Your boss. No, I said too fast. Just spam. He chuckled. Even spam is persistent. I tried to smile back, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. The restaurant door opened. I didn't see it at first. I felt it, the pressure change, like a storm rolling in. Voices in the main room softened. Footsteps approached, unhurried, deliberate. The kind of steps that assumed the world would move aside. Min-jae frowned. Okay, that's weird. My throat tightened. I knew those footsteps. I'd heard them behind my desk late at night, in empty hallways, in the elevator when the doors closed, and the air suddenly became too small. I shifted just enough to see through the narrow gap where the frosted panel didn't meet the wall. Black suit, broad shoulders, hair slicked back like every strand obeyed him. Two men flanking him, faces blank, eyes scanning the room. Kang Joon-ho walked in like the restaurant belonged to him. He didn't look around aimlessly. He didn't need to. His eyes found me instantly. Even from across the room, it hit like a hand around my wrist. My breath caught. My skin prickled, as if my body recognized him before my mind accepted what was happening. Min-jae followed my gaze and stiffened. Do you know him? I couldn't answer. My tongue felt stuck to the roof of my mouth. Joon-ho moved past the manager who hurried to greet him, past the hostess who bowed too deeply. He headed straight toward the private booths, toward our corridor, with the calm of a man who already knew where he was going. Someone told him. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message. I will be there in 1 minute. My hands went numb around my chopsticks. Min-jae reached across the table, concern flooding his face. Haneul, you're shaking. Should we leave? Leave. As if leaving was something I was allowed to do. The curtain at the entrance of our booth shifted. A shadow fell across the tablecloth, swallowing the candlelight. Kang Joon-ho stepped into view. Up close, his calm was sharper, eyes dark, expression unreadable, jaw set like stone. He didn't glance at the menu, at the food, at the carefully staged romance of the room. He looked only at me. Then his gaze slid to Min-jae, measuring him in a single silent sweep. Height, posture, the way his hand hovered near mine like it had the right to. Min-jae stood, polite instinct taking over. Sir, can I help you? Joon-ho ignored the question as if it hadn't been spoken. His bodyguard stayed by the curtain, blocking the exit without touching it, a quiet reminder that the door was no longer mine to open. And then his voice, smooth, controlled, and dangerously quiet, filled the space. Yoon Haneul, Kang Joon-ho said, as if testing the room with my name. Stand up. For a second, I forgot how to move. Stand up, Kang Joon-ho repeated, still calm, still quiet, like the volume didn't matter because everyone obeyed anyway. Min-jae's eyes flicked between us, confusion tightening his face. Haneul, who is he? I swallowed. My throat felt scraped raw. My boss. Min-jae straightened like that word changed everything. Ah, then please, sir. Joon-ho didn't let him finish. His gaze stayed locked on mine. It wasn't anger the way normal men carried it. Loud, messy, dramatic. His anger was polished, controlled, the kind that made people disappear without a scene. I forced my legs to work and stood up slowly, palms flat on the table, so my hands wouldn't shake. The booth suddenly felt too small for the three of us. The candle flame trembled, trying to survive the air between us. Joon-ho leaned just slightly toward me. Come out. Sir, Min-jae said, voice firming up. This is a private dinner. If you need to speak to Ms. Yoon, you can call the office tomorrow. Joon-ho's eyes finally moved to him. Just one look. Not a glare. Not a threat. A simple, cold assessment. You're Park Min-jae, he said. Min-jae froze. Yes. How? Joon-ho didn't answer. Of course he didn't. His attention returned to me as if Min-jae was a detail already filed away. Haneul, he said, and my name sounded like a command he was used to giving. Now, I should have said no. I should have sat back down and finished my eel and smiled like my life belonged to me. But my body had learned to respond to his presence long before my mind had learned to resist it. I stepped around the table and slipped past him into the corridor. The bodyguard, tall, expressionless, shifted to keep Min-jae in the booth. Not by grabbing him, just by standing in the right place so the message was clear. Min-jae called my name. Haneul, wait. I turned my head just enough to meet his eyes through the curtain gap. My chest tightened with guilt. I'll explain later, I whispered. I hated how weak it sounded. Joon-ho led me down the corridor toward the restroom hallway, away from the main room. His pace wasn't fast. It didn't need to be. He walked like the world adjusted itself around him. When we reached the end, he stopped, just beside a decorative wall of black stone and silver branches, and faced me. Up close, I could see it. The rigid control in the tight line of his mouth, the barely contained tension in his jaw. His eyes were dark and sharp, but not wild. That was worse. Is this what you meant by personal appointment? He asked. I lifted my chin. Yes. A pause. You're having dinner with a man, he said, as if he needed to taste the words. In a place where anyone can see you. I'm allowed to eat, I replied. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. And I'm allowed to have friends. His stare didn't move. You didn't answer my calls, he said. I blinked. Because I was off work. The silence stretched. Somewhere behind us, water ran softly in a sink. The restaurant's music felt like it belonged to another universe. Joon-ho took one step closer. Not enough to touch me. Just enough that I could smell his cologne, clean and expensive, like cold woods after rain. You work for me, he said. I work for the company, I corrected before I could stop myself. His eyes narrowed a fraction. You're my assistant. I let out a breath, trying to keep my emotions from spilling out like a cracked glass. That doesn't mean you can show up and do this. Do what? He asked, too calm. Humiliate me. My voice rose to spite me. Control who I meet. Decide what I'm allowed to do after hours. His gaze flickered, just once, to my lips, then back to my eyes. I didn't come here to humiliate you, he said. Then why did you come? I demanded. For the first time, something shifted in his expression, something sharp and honest. Because I saw you smiling, he said quietly. And it wasn't for me. The words hit my chest like a shove. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. What does that even mean? I asked, even though a part of me understood exactly what it meant. His voice stayed level, but it carried heat underneath. It means you were sitting across from another man like you belonged there. Like you didn't have obligations. Obligations? I repeated, incredulous. To you. His eyes darkened further, as if that was the wrong question. You don't understand what kind of attention you attract when you're with me. With you. I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping. I wasn't with you. That's the point. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, do you think I let you walk around unprotected because I enjoyed being controlling? My stomach tightened. Unprotected. The word didn't belong in an argument about dinner dates. It belonged in his world, dark corridors, men with weapons, power plays whispered behind tinted windows. I don't need protection, I said automatically. Joon-ho's mouth twitched like he almost smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You do. I'm not, I started, then lowered my voice as footsteps passed at the end of the hall. I'm not one of your possessions, Mr. Kang. That finally did it. His hand shot out, not to grab my wrist, not to hurt me, but to plant itself against the wall beside my head. A hard stop. A cage made of air and authority. I never said you were, he murmured, close enough now that my breath caught. But you act like you can step into the world and it won't bite you. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. And you act like you're the only one who can keep me safe. His eyes held mine. Then his voice dropped, softer. Because I am. I hated that part of me believed him. I hated that the hallway felt warmer now. That my skin was aware of him in a way it shouldn't be. Behind us, the curtain rustled. A man's voice, low, cautious, spoke. Chairman. Joon-ho didn't move, but his gaze shifted slightly over my shoulder. I turned my head and saw him. C.O. Yoon, head of security. Tall, neat, with eyes that didn't miss anything. He stood at a respectful distance, hands folded, waiting. I apologize, Yoon said, tone professional. The manager is asking if you'd like your usual room. Joon-ho's eyes returned to me. No. Then, to Yoon, bring the car around. Yoon nodded once and disappeared. My stomach dropped. What are you doing? Joon-ho's hand lowered from the wall. He stepped back like he hadn't just trapped me with his presence. We're leaving, he said. I'm not leaving. I turned toward the booth corridor. I came with Min-jae. I'm going to finish my dinner and go home like a normal person. Joon-ho's voice followed me. Smooth and dangerous. Normal. I stopped. Slowly, I turned back. His expression wasn't mocking. It was almost sad. Almost. You don't get to be normal, he said. Not while you're beside me. Something cold slid down my spine. Why? He looked at me for a long time, like he was choosing his next words carefully. Then he said, because people already think you're mine. My breath hitched. That's not my problem. It becomes your problem when someone decides to prove them right, he replied. I stared at him, trying to decode what he wasn't saying. Then the restaurant's main doors opened again. Distant, but loud enough for the hallway to catch the sound. A burst of winter air. A rush of voices. And in the background, I heard it, the faint click of a camera shutter. My eyes widened. Joon-ho's gaze sharpened instantly. He turned his head toward the sound, then back to me. Now, he said, the calm in his voice finally cracking into something steel hard. You understand. I swallowed. What did you just bring to my life? He didn't answer that. He reached into his suit pocket, pulled out his phone, and typed one message without looking down. Then he held the screen toward me. Do Yoon, identify the photographer. Now. My stomach twisted. Joon-ho slipped the phone away and stepped closer again. Voice low enough to feel like a secret. You wanted a dinner date, he murmured. Fine. His eyes narrowed, and for the first time tonight, I saw real fury, barely restrained, like a blade still in its sheath. Tomorrow, he said, you're going to find out what it costs. I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared of Kang Joon-ho, though fear was always part of the atmosphere around him. I didn't sleep because my phone wouldn't stop buzzing, and because every time I closed my eyes, I saw the flash of a camera in the restaurant doorway. By dawn, my apartment felt like it had shrunk. The walls, the window, the air, everything pressed in, as if the city itself was leaning closer to listen. At 6:12 a.m., Min-jae texted. Min-jae, Haneul, are you okay? I'm sorry. I didn't know. Min-jae, I didn't mean to cause trouble. Call me when you can. I stared at the messages until my eyes burned. Trouble. As if this was something that had happened to me accidentally. Like spilled coffee. At 6:43 a.m., a second message came in, unknown number. Unknown. Don't leave your building alone today. My fingers went cold. I typed a reply, who is this, then deleted it. I didn't want to invite conversation with a stranger who knew where I lived. I showered, dressed in my most neutral suit, and tried to make my face look like it belonged to a woman who had slept. I failed. The mirror reflected a version of me with shadows under her eyes and a mouth that couldn't decide if it was angry or afraid. When I stepped outside, a black sedan was parked near the curb. I stopped walking. The back window rolled down an inch, just enough for me to see the face inside. Co. Yoon. He didn't smile. He never did. Ms. Yoon. I didn't call for a car, I said. You didn't need to, he replied politely. Chairman Kang instructed me. My stomach tightened. I can take the subway. Yoon's gaze slid over the street behind me, his eyes checking angles and reflections like the world was a map of threats. Today you won't. There were no weapons visible. No dramatic intimidation. Just the fact that he spoke like the decision had already been made, and the quiet confidence that resisting would only make my day harder. I climbed into the car. The driver pulled away smoothly, as if I'd agreed willingly. I sat rigidly, hands folded in my lap. Is there something you're not telling me? Yoon looked forward. Yes. I waited. After a beat, he added, but it isn't mine to tell. The silence that followed felt like a locked door. The lobby of Kang Group looked the same as always. Marble floors, a wall of glass, employees moving with a practiced urgency. But when I stepped out of the elevator on the executive floor, I knew immediately something had changed. People's eyes lifted too fast. Whispers stopped too late. My coworkers didn't greet me with their usual half bows and friendly good morning. They looked at me the way people look at a car accident they're trying not to stare at. I kept my expression blank and walked to my desk. My computer was on. That was unusual. I always turn it off at night. A sticky note sat on my keyboard. 9 a.m. Chairman's office. No delays. No signature. There didn't need to be. I swallowed the knot in my throat and sat down. My email inbox was a battlefield. Meeting changes. Cancellations. A dozen urgent requests from directors who suddenly needed the chairman's approval. And buried among them, one message with no subject line, sent from an unfamiliar address. I clicked it. You looked pretty last night. My blood drained from my face. Another line appeared below, like someone had typed it slowly. Does he know where you live? I slammed my laptop shut, so hard the sound echoed in the quiet office. A few heads turned. I forced myself to breathe. This wasn't gossip anymore. This was a warning. My phone buzzed on the desk. I didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. Private number. I answered before I lost my nerve. Yes, sir. His voice came through, calm and crisp. Office. Now. My throat tightened. It's not 9 yet. It is for you, he replied, then ended the call. I sat for 1 second, staring at my closed laptop, then stood. My legs carried me down the corridor toward his office like they remembered this route better than my brain did. The doors were open. Inside, Kang Joon-ho stood by the window, his back to me. Morning light cut across the room and turned his silhouette into something carved out of black stone. Two men sat at the conference table. Directors, I thought at first. Then I recognized them. Legal and security. Not directors. Specialists. My pulse quickened. Joon-ho didn't turn around. Close the door. I did. The click of the latch sounded final. He finally faced me. His expression was composed, but his eyes were darker than usual, like he'd spent the night thinking in a way that burned through rest. He looked me up and down once. Not at my outfit. At my face. You didn't sleep, he observed. That's not your concern, I said. His gaze hardened. Everything that touches you is my concern right now. I flinched, then forced myself not to show it. Because of a photo? Because of a message, he corrected, nodding once toward the table. The legal officer slid a tablet toward me. On the screen was a blurred photo, taken from the restaurant entrance. Min-jae and I in the booth, laughing. The angle caught my profile, my smile too clear for comfort. And then in the next photo, Joon-ho in the corridor, his body turned toward me. It looked like possession, like a claim. My stomach twisted. Joon-ho's voice was low. That photo will be everywhere by tonight if I don't stop it. I stared at the images, my throat tight. You can't control the internet. A faint, humorless curve touched his mouth. You'd be surprised what I can control. The security specialist, a woman with hair pulled back and eyes like a scanner, spoke. Chairman. The photographer wasn't press. He used a personal camera, no media badge. He exited through the service door. Joon-ho's gaze never left me. And yet he knew you'd be there. I swallowed. Min-jae didn't know you'd show up. Min-jae. Joon-ho repeated, like the name tasted wrong. He took a slow step toward me. Tell me exactly how you know him. I stiffened. He's an old friend. How old? He asked. University senior, I replied. That's all. Joon-ho's eyes narrowed. You didn't mention him. I don't report my friendships to you, I said sharply. The room went still. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. Joon-ho's jaw flexed once. He looked away briefly, like he was choosing restraint. Then he turned back and his voice was softer, more dangerous because of it. You don't understand what I'm trying to protect you from, he said. I forced myself to meet his eyes, then explain it instead of treating me like a hostage. His gaze held mine for a long moment. Then he spoke to the security specialist without looking away from me. Yoon. The door opened. CO Yoon stepped in silently, as if he'd been standing outside the entire time. Joon-ho said, show her. Yoon placed an envelope on the table and slid out a printed photo. My breath stopped. It was my apartment building, taken from across the street. The angle was low and distant, like the photographer had been sitting in a car. Another photo followed, me leaving my building yesterday morning, captured mid-step. My knees went weak. Yoon's voice stayed polite. This was taken before last night, Ms. Yoon. My fingers trembled as I stared at the images. How long? Yoon didn't answer. Joon-ho did. Long enough, he said quietly, that I'm done pretending you're safe without me. Anger flared through my fear like a match. This is your life. I snapped. Your enemies, your games, our, he corrected, and his voice cracked like a whip. Because you're beside me. I didn't choose that. I shot back. His eyes flashed. You chose it every time you walked back into my office. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. Because part of me knew he wasn't entirely wrong. I'd stayed. I'd endured. I'd adapted. Not because I wanted his world. Because I thought I could survive it without becoming part of it. The legal officer cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Chairman, if the photos leak, we can pursue. Not later, Joon-ho cut in. Now. He moved to his desk, pulled out a small card and held it out to me. A black access badge. My name printed beneath the company logo, except the clearance level was different. Higher. My stomach clenched. What is this? From today, he said, voice calm again, you won't move alone. You won't take unapproved meetings. And you won't see Park Min-jae until I say so. My hands curled into fists. You can't forbid me from seeing someone. He stepped closer, stopping just short of touching me. His voice dropped. I can, he said, if he's the reason someone found your front door. My heart slammed against my ribs. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want Min Jae's gentle smile to be connected to a photo of my apartment. But the printed images didn't care what I wanted. Joon-ho's gaze pinned me. Tell me the truth, Haneul. His voice softened on my name, almost intimate, almost cruel. Did you ever tell him where you live? My mouth went dry, because suddenly I couldn't remember. And that uncertainty, small, human, stupid, felt like the beginning of something that could ruin everything. I don't know, I admitted, and the words tasted like defeat. Kang Joon-ho stared at me as if he could pull the memory out of my head by force. You don't know, he repeated, slow and sharp. I swallowed hard. We talked about neighborhoods. Once. I might have mentioned the area. Not the exact building. Joon-ho didn't look satisfied. He turned his head slightly toward Yoon. Get her call logs. I jerked back. Excuse me. Yoon's expression stayed neutral, but his eyes flicked to me as if he understood how intrusive it sounded and didn't care anyway. Chairman's instruction. I'm not a suspect, I said, voice rising. I'm the victim. Joon-ho's gaze snapped back to me. Then stop making it harder to keep you alive. The room went silent, the words hanging like smoke. Alive. My lungs forgot how to work for a moment. I forced myself to breathe, then stepped toward his desk, close enough that his cologne hit me again like a cold slap. You think saying things like that makes this easier? You think fear is going to make me obedient? His eyes didn't flinch. Fear isn't what I'm using. What are you using then? I demanded. His jaw flexed once. His gaze dropped briefly to my hands, clenched at my sides, then returned to my eyes. Instinct, he said. I hated that he was right. My body had already started obeying him. Sitting in his car, walking into his office, closing the door behind me like it was normal. I took a step back before he could feel it. I'm going to call Min Jae, I said. Joon-ho's eyes narrowed. No. I raised my phone anyway. I'm not asking you. His voice sharpened. Haneul. I pressed dial. It rang twice. Then Min Jae answered, breathless, like he'd been holding his phone all morning. Haneul. Thank God. Are you okay? I've been texting. Min Jae. I cut in, trying to keep my voice steady. Did you tell anyone about last night? What? No. He sounded offended. Of course not. Did you take any photos? I asked. No, he said quickly. I told you, I hate those gossip accounts. Haneul, what's happening? I glanced at Joon-ho. His eyes were on me like a blade. Someone has photos of my apartment, I said softly. And they're connected to last night. There was a pause. Then Min Jae's voice lowered, confused and worried. Your apartment? How would? I don't know, I admitted. But I need you to meet me. Joon-ho stepped closer. I felt him behind me before I saw him, like his presence had weight. You're not meeting him alone, he said. I turned. I didn't ask you. He didn't blink. You don't have to. I exhaled, forcing calm. Min Jae, meet me at, I hesitated, then chose a neutral public place. The cafe in front of the university library. 1 hour. Min Jae's relief was audible. Okay. Yes. I'll be there. Haneul, listen, about last night, I'm really sorry. I didn't know your boss was. Save it for later, I said, then ended the call. Joon-ho's gaze burned into me. You think a public cafe makes you safe? It makes it harder for you to bully him, I shot back. Something like a smile, small, humorless, tugged at his mouth. I don't bully. I remove problems. I shivered despite myself. Yoon cleared his throat. Chairman, the car is ready. Joon-ho didn't take his eyes off me. You're coming, he said. I hated how my heart reacted to that. Half rage, half relief. The drive to the university district felt longer than it should have. Joon-ho sat beside me in the back seat, silent, his gaze fixed on the street outside like he was counting threats. Yoon sat in the front passenger seat, occasionally murmuring into an earpiece. I stared out the window, trying to steady my mind. My phone buzzed. A new email notification. I hesitated, then opened it. Subject, you belong to him. Body, prove you don't. A cold wave washed over me. I didn't show it to Joon-ho. I didn't know why. Maybe because the message sounded like a challenge and I didn't want to feed his rage. Maybe because some stubborn part of me didn't want him to be right about everything. The car stopped across from the cafe near the library. Students moved in and out, carrying backpacks and iced coffees, laughing like life was uncomplicated. I'd forgotten what that looked like. "We go in," I said, reaching for the door handle. Joon-ho's hand closed over mine. Not a grip. A stop. My breath caught. His touch was warm, firm, too familiar for something that was supposed to be professional. "I go first," he said. I pulled my hand away. "Why?" His eyes met mine. "Because I'm not letting you walk into something I can't control." I laughed bitterly. There it is again. He didn't respond. He stepped out of the car. Outside, he adjusted his suit jacket with one smooth motion and walked toward the cafe like he owned the sidewalk. People noticed. They always noticed him. Heads turned. Conversations paused. I followed, my pulse hammering. Inside, the cafe smelled like espresso and vanilla syrup. It was bright, crowded, loud. Min Jae was already there, sitting at a corner table. He stood when he saw me, then stopped when he saw Joon-ho. His polite smile stiffened. "Chairman Kang." Joon-ho didn't greet him. He sat down without asking, taking the seat closest to me like it was strategic. I sat opposite Min Jae, hands clenched around my coffee cup. "Min Jae, tell me the truth. Did you tell anyone where I live? Did you mention last night to anyone?" Min Jae's eyes widened. "No. Haneul, I swear." "I don't even," he looked at Joon-ho carefully, then back at me. "Why would I do that?" Joon-ho finally spoke, voice low. "Because you were paid." Min Jae's face flushed with shock. "What?" Joon-ho slid a thin folder onto the table. "Your bank account received a deposit this morning. 20 million won." Min Jae stared at the folder as if it were poison. "That's impossible." "I didn't." "Check," Joon-ho said. Min Jae's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. His fingers moved quickly. His face drained of color. He looked up, horrified. I didn't do this." I felt my stomach drop. "Min Jae." He pushed his phone toward me, eyes wide with panic. The transaction was there. 20 million won. Sender name, Han Suk-jin. I froze. That name was a ghost from the company's darkest corners. Han Suk-jin was a former executive, fired quietly after an embezzlement scandal. Not arrested, not ruined, just removed. The way Joon-ho said he removed problems. Min Jae's voice cracked. "Haneul, I swear I didn't take money from anyone. I didn't even know. Who is that?" Joon-ho leaned back in his chair, expression cold. "He's someone who wants my attention. And he found you." My pulse thudded in my ears. Why would he deposit money into Min Jae's account? "To frame him," Joon-ho said. "To make it look like he sold information." Min Jae looked like he might throw up. I didn't sell anything. I don't even know where she lives exactly. I only knew the neighborhood because she mentioned. My chest tightened. I remembered it now. A casual conversation weeks ago. I complained about the long walk from the station. Min Jae had joked about visiting to bring me dinner when I was too busy. I'd laughed. I thought it was harmless. Joon-ho's eyes sharpened. The neighborhood was enough. I turned to Min Jae. "Did anyone approach you? Anyone ask about me? Offer you something?" Min Jae swallowed hard, eyes darting away. "No. I mean," he hesitated. Then his shoulders slumped. "There was a man last week. Outside my school." My blood went cold. "What man?" Min Jae's voice dropped, ashamed. "He said he was from a media company. He asked if I knew you. He said you were dating someone famous. He offered me money for a story." I said no. I told him to go away. Joon-ho's jaw tightened. Min Jae looked at me desperately. I didn't think it mattered. I thought it was just gossip. Joon-ho's eyes were ice. In my world, gossip is the first knife. I sat frozen, trying to keep my breathing steady. So Min Jae wasn't the traitor. He was the doorway, and someone had walked through him. Joon-ho leaned forward, voice dropping low enough that it felt like a private promise. "Han Suk-jin isn't doing this for money," he said. "He's doing it because he wants me to choose." I frowned. "Choose what?" Joon-ho's eyes met mine. "Between my reputation," he said, "and you." My heart stuttered. Min Jae looked between us, confusion and realization colliding in his face. "Haneul, what is he talking about? Are you?" Joon-ho's hand moved again, fast, closing around my wrist under the table. Not tight enough to hurt, tight enough to remind me I was not alone. He didn't look away from Min-jae when he spoke. Here's what you're going to do, Joon-ho said calmly. You're going to give Yoon every detail about that man outside your school. And then you're going to disappear. Min-jae flinched. Disappear. Go somewhere safe, Joon-ho corrected. Before Suk-jin decides you're more useful dead than framed. My stomach lurched. Min-jae's eyes widened in horror. Dead? I pulled my wrist free and stood so fast my chair scraped loudly. Heads turned. The cafe suddenly felt too bright. This is insane, I hissed. You can't just... Joon-ho stood too, towering beside me. His voice stayed low, but it cut through my panic. I can, he said. And I will. He glanced at Yoon, who had appeared near the entrance like he'd been waiting, and spoke one command. Move her. Before I could protest, Yoon stepped in, gentle but firm, guiding me toward the door. I twisted, looking back at Min-jae. He looked pale, terrified, trapped in a nightmare he didn't understand. And Kang Joon-ho. Kang Joon-ho, watch me the way you watch something you refuse to lose. As we reached the sidewalk, my phone buzzed again. A new message. Unknown tonight. 9 p.m. Come alone if you want him to live. My breath stopped. Because this wasn't about photos anymore. This was a hostage note. And I already knew exactly what Kang Joon-ho would do if he saw it. I didn't show him the message. Not at first. I sat in the back seat of Joon-ho's car with my phone face down in my lap. My fingers curled so tightly around it my knuckles ached. Outside the window, the city moved like nothing had changed. People crossing streets, couples laughing, neon signs flickering awake. But inside me, everything was screaming. Tonight, 9 p.m. Come alone if you want him to live. Min-jae's terrified face replayed in my mind like a loop I couldn't break. He wasn't part of this world. He didn't deserve to be swallowed by it because he'd once offered to bring me dinner when I was tired. I swallowed hard and looked up. Kang Joon-ho was watching me. Not casually, not in passing. Watching like he'd already noticed the shift in my breathing, the way my shoulders tightened, the way my eyes kept dropping to my phone. What did you receive? He asked. I forced a bland expression. Nothing. He didn't speak for a second. The car's engine hummed softly, smooth and expensive. Yoon sat in the front, silent, as if he could hear every lie in the back seat and didn't need to comment. Joon-ho leaned closer, his voice a calm blade. Haneul. My chest tightened at the way he said my name. Quiet, precise, like a lock clicking into place. I said nothing, I repeated. His gaze didn't move. You're shaking. I'm angry, I snapped. A flicker crossed his eyes. Not surprise. Something closer to satisfaction, as if anger was at least honest. Good, he murmured. Use it. It keeps you alive. I hated him for that. For being right. For making danger sound like a lesson I was supposed to learn. We arrived at Kang Group headquarters again, but Yoon didn't lead me to my desk. He led me to a private elevator I'd never used before. One that required Joon-ho's new access badge in my hand. The doors opened into a quiet floor with a single suite. Not an office. A dressing room. Stylists bowed. A woman with measuring tape around her neck approached me like I was a mannequin. Ms. Yoon, we have very little time. I stared. What is this? Joon-ho's voice came from behind me. A gala. I turned sharply. What? He stepped into the room, jacket already removed, sleeves rolled up as if he'd been born in crisis. Tonight, Kang Group announces the new international partnership. Every reporter in Seoul will be there. My stomach sank. I'm not going. You are, he said simply. I laughed in disbelief. Do you hear yourself? Someone is threatening. He cut me off with a look. Exactly why you're going. The stylist cleared her throat awkwardly and gestured toward a rack of dresses. Ms. Yoon, please. I stepped back. No, I'm not a decoration for your business event. Joon-ho moved close enough that the air changed around me. He lowered his voice so only I could hear. If Suk-jin wants attention, he said, we give him attention. On our terms. My throat went dry. You're using me as bait. His eyes held mine without flinching. I'm keeping you where I can protect you. And Min-jae. I hissed. His jaw tightened. He's already being moved. I blinked. Moved where? Joon-ho didn't answer. He didn't have to. In his world, moved meant hidden, controlled, placed like a chess piece. My stomach churned. The stylist approached again, gentle but insistent, and before I could protest further, they were guiding me toward a mirror, draping fabric against my shoulders, pinning my hair, painting my face into something smoother and calmer than I felt inside. While they worked, I watched Joon-ho in the reflection. He stood near the window, speaking quietly into his phone, his profile sharp against the city skyline. He looked like a man built for power, composed, untouchable, dangerous in the way he made danger look normal. If I told him about the message, he would explode. Not in public. Not with shouting. He would explode with decisions. With violence done through other hands. With doors closing and people disappearing. And Min-jae would become collateral. So I stayed silent. I told myself I'd handle it. Just once. By the time we arrived at the gala venue, a luxury hotel ballroom flooded with light, my body didn't feel like mine anymore. The dress was black and sleek, elegant in a way that screamed belonging. The kind of dress people would assume was chosen by a man, not a woman. I stepped out of the car, and camera flashes immediately cracked the air. A red carpet stretched toward the entrance. Reporters lined the sides like predators who didn't bite, only recorded. I froze instinctively. Joon-ho's hand found the small of my back. Not possessive, not gentle, steadying. Walk, he said quietly. We moved forward, and the crowd's energy tightened around us. I heard whispers like wind. Chairman Kang brought a woman? Is that his assistant? I heard she's the reason he fired Han Suk-jin. My heart pounded. I kept my gaze forward, smiling with my mouth while my stomach rolled. As we reached the entrance, a reporter shoved a microphone closer. Chairman Kang, who is she? Joon-ho didn't break stride. Ms. Yoon Haneul, he said, voice smooth. My executive assistant. Another reporter pushed in. Is she also your girlfriend? The words hit like a slap. I felt my smile falter. Joon-ho stopped. The entire line of cameras seemed to hold its breath. He turned his head slightly and looked at me. Just me. His eyes, dark, controlled, softened for half a second, and that softness terrified me more than his fury ever had. Then he faced the reporters again. No comment, he said, but his hand slid lower, fingers curving around my waist, pulling me just a fraction closer. It was a statement without words. I felt heat creep up my neck. Anger, embarrassment, and something else I refused to name. Inside the ballroom, the lights were warmer, the music louder. Men in tailored suits, women in glittering dresses, champagne trays, smiles sharp enough to cut. People bowed to Joon-ho as we passed. Some glanced at me with curiosity, some with envy, some with quiet pity, as if they already knew what it meant to stand beside him. We reached a private table near the stage. Yoon and two guards lingered at a discreet distance. Joon-ho remained beside me, never letting more than half a step form between us. I tried to breathe. My phone buzzed in my clutch bag. I didn't check it immediately. I couldn't. Not with cameras still roaming. Not with Joon-ho's presence like a hand at the back of my neck. But the buzzing came again. And again. My pulse spiked. I excused myself with a tight smile. I need the restroom. Joon-ho's gaze caught mine. Yoon will go with you. No, I snapped too fast. Then softened quickly, forcing calm. It's crowded. I'll be faster alone. His eyes narrowed slightly, reading me. Haneul. I held my breath. After a beat, he spoke into his earpiece. Eyes on her. I hated the relief that washed over me. He hadn't fully allowed it, but he'd loosened the leash just enough. I walked away through the crowd, heart hammering, and slipped into the restroom hallway. The moment I was alone, I pulled out my phone. 3 messages. Unknown, 9 p.m. Unknown, don't test me. Unknown, if you tell him he dies first. My vision blurred. My hands trembled so badly I almost dropped the phone. I pressed a fist to my mouth to hold back a sound. Then another message arrived. Different number this time. Unknown, we're watching you right now. My blood froze. I lifted my head slowly. At the end of the hallway, near the service door, a man stood in a waiter's uniform. Tray in hand. head slightly bowed, but his eyes were on me. Not a waiter's eyes. He tilted his chin once, barely a gesture as if pointing. The service door. My throat closed. I backed up a step, clutching my phone like it could protect me, like it could save Min-jae and save me at the same time. Behind me, the ballroom doors opened. Laughter spilled out. Music. Life. And in that noise, I heard Joon-ho's voice calling my name, distant, sharp. Haneul. I spun, heart pounding, and saw him walking toward the hallway, his expression already changing, his instincts catching up to the truth I'd hidden. My breath hitched, because if he reached me and saw my phone, everything would burn. And if I didn't go at 9, someone else would burn first. I turned back toward the service door. The waiter was still there, waiting, and the clock on the wall ticked forward like a threat.